Welcome back to some new r/petty revenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Passed Me Over. I have a 0-hour contract working in hospitality. A full-time supervisor role came up, and since I have experience in that area, I thought why not. Interview went really well with the assistant manager. We had a laugh and a chit-chat, along with answering the same old boring questions. Soon after, I had a minor illness, the kind you don't want to be around food, so I took 4 days off to be clear of it. My first day back is a training day. Comments are made about being short-staffed, unable to fill more of the 0-hour contracts, and how we need some help. Luckily, they filled the supervisor role, and she'll be starting next week. It ain't me, and this is the first time I'm hearing I've clearly been unsuccessful in my application. I get an apology from the manager at the end of today's sessions with a "I like to do these things in person, but you were sick. You would have gotten the role. Yet the other candidate can fill the hours we need." They wanted me to guarantee I could work 60 to 70 hours a week, despite this not being what the job states or entails. I told them I'd happily do 50 or 60 in the busy season, which I think is more than satisfactory to anyone else. Anyhow, I left for home and got a call for a job I had interviewed for before I went off sick. I was hedging my bets, and glad I did, so I'll be off to a 3-day work week elsewhere for more money. See ya later. Oh, and good luck filling that extra 0-hour role with no job security. Personally, I think they thought they got lucky finding someone for the supervisor role. They were struggling for months. I presumed I'd stay in the very needed lower role. Now they are down 3 needed members, instead of just 2. The next story is called Refuse to Own Up. About a year ago, I stopped at a 6-lettered, blue-collared grocery store that underpays its employees to pick up some tomatoes. While I was in there, a microburst came through and blew some stuff around. Not strong enough to topple trees, but some decent wind gusts. This particular store chose to have their cart corrals freestanding, with no rails or bolting to the ground. One of these corrals, empty of carts, was blown into the back of my relatively new car at the time, putting a sizable dent on the trunk deck. The signage on the sides of the corral more or less acted as a sail, and since the whole thing weighed so little, it just spun in place and slammed in the car. Corrals with as little as 1 cart in them were unaffected, and all of this was captured on dashcam. I moved the corral after I got back to check the damage. Even a particularly energetic fart could have moved this thing. I ended up in contact with their legal team and was informed that they would not be taking responsibility, as the corrals needed to be mobile to clean the parking lot. When I asked what would have happened if the corral had hit a person walking, the lawyer refused to talk to me anymore, other than to say, "We will not be taking responsibility." I informed her that we would no longer be shopping at that chain, and we've stuck to that religiously. Total damage to the car? About 3k. Total lost gross sales? Around 13k, and counting. I know it barely affects their bottom line, but it brings me great satisfaction every time I pass by the store, with groceries from somewhere yellow or green, and for less money to boot. The third story is called No Electricity. This happened about 18 years ago. I was 16 and moved out of the family home and lived with a guy, Eric, and girl, Chloe, in a flat on the not so nice side of town, owned by a slum landlord. I knew Eric really well and continued to live with him for another 4 years, but didn't know Chloe that well. I don't remember much about living with her, but I do remember after we'd been living together for about 6 months that Eric and I got really fed up with Chloe's constant complaints about our home life. An expectation versus reality problem. Nothing was ever good enough. She complained about everything, and never got her rent to me on time. We were all young, newly independent teenagers who had low-paying jobs and were doing the best we could. One night, she had a go at me for not doing her dishes, and I went through her. She was white in my face, screaming at me, and I just screamed back. I think the gradual build-up of anger released all at once, and I know that we were not arguing about the fact I never washed her dishes, but about everything else. She would never apologize and would just be oversweet next time you spoke to her. I really struggle with folk like this to this day. After the blow-up, she went back to her room, and Eric and I watched TV in the living room when the electricity cut out. We had one of those meter cards and had run out of money. Chloe came through and asked if we had any money to get electricity. Still upset about the argument earlier, Eric and I said not at the moment, although I planned to get some later on that night. Chloe arranged to go to her friend's house and stay the night, because she couldn't live with no electricity. She left, and Eric went to the shop to get electricity added to the card, but we never told her. Eric and I went about our usual stuff, but decided that we much preferred not having Chloe about, so whenever we left the house, we would switch the main switch off. Chloe came back to the house on 3 occasions over the next week whilst we were out, and saw that the electricity still hadn't been sorted, so went back to her friend's house for a few more days. Overall, we had her out of the house for almost 2 weeks. I remember being so relieved at the peace and quiet, and Eric, our friends, and I had a great time. She moved out not long after. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.